Hello, my name is Connor Quinlan, and in this review I'm going to be doing a review over the Nikon f100, which is actually a pretty old film camera, in fact. I've taken up film pretty recently, and the reason I took up film was for landscape and nature photography, and also for other reasons because it does some things that digital cameras can't do. And I will be explaining that in a different video that will be called Digital versus Film, and I'll talk about the advantages of digital and of film in that video. Now, this is the Nikon f100 that I have right here, and in this video I'm just going to kind of explain what a film camera does, kind of how it works, the controls on this, and stuff like that. Now, the lens on it is a Nikon 14 to 24 millimeter, and I won't be doing any review on that in this video, but I will be having a video just strictly on the Nikon 14 to 24 if you're interested in that. Alright, and the first thing I'm going to do in this review is we're just going to take a quick look at the body and where the controls are located and stuff. Well, this camera is actually pretty close and pretty similar to a Nikon professional camera like the D3 or D3X or a camera like that. Now, why is that? Well, it's because of all the controls and where they're placed. It's very similar to something like you'd see on the D3. For instance, instead of things like white balance and quality that you'd find on a more amateur digital SLR, you see things like bracketing, flash, ISO. All those things up here are actually located on a more professional cameras like the D3, as well as this little thing up here where you can control the metering. And of course, like many professional cameras, it does not have a flash that's connected. You have to buy a separate flash for it. Now, as you can see, that's pretty much all the buttons you'll see on here, except for a mode button, a couple of AEL buttons, AF on button, and a little multi-selector button. But that's pretty much it. You don't see any menus or anything like that like you can do with a normal digital SLR. So how do you choose custom functions and stuff like that? Well, that's where this camera gets a little bit complicated, and that's why if you buy a camera like the f100, you're probably going to want to learn it pretty well through a manual or something like that. You get to your custom functions by actually clicking this custom button here, and then you have to scroll through 21 different functions and then choose whether you want them on or off or whatever you get to choose for them. Really quickly, just so you can take a look at that, I'm going to press the custom button. And as you can see, it has all these numbers when I scroll through, and then 654, and then next to that is either 0 or a 1 or a 2 or an A5. Now, all these are different custom functions, whether it be for bracketing, for EV stops, or for flash syncs, all the stuff like that. And in order to learn that, you have to learn the manual and the custom functions as well. So that's where this film camera like f100 can get a little bit complicated. But other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then, of course, unlike digital SLRs, this does not have an LCD on the back to tell you at all what you're doing. All it has is that little one on top. Now, a lot of people probably have questions of how do you load the film. Well, sadly, I can't really show you now because I have film in it. But you got a little button here. You pull that down, basically pull that back, and that opens up to reveal all the film and the sensor and stuff like that inside. Now, what about things like build quality and stuff like that? Well, let's just put it this way. This has pretty much the same build quality as the Nikon D300. When it first came out, it was actually priced at about $1,800, and it came out back in 1995. So as you can see, it's a pretty old camera. You can now buy it used at Adorama or whatever type of store you want for around $200. So that's quite a bargain compared to what it used to cost a while back. Like I said before, the custom functions on the f100 are a little hard to understand at first, but once you have them set, you usually don't need to change them a lot. All you ever really need to change is the flash sync, bracketing if you want to use it, the mode you're using, and the EV stops. That's pretty much it, unlike a digital camera where you have a lot of other things to change. So in a way, the film camera is somewhat easier to use than a digital camera. All you really have to do is point it at your subject, focus it, and adjust your EV to what you want it to be. Of course, it does take some experience to take the picture properly because there's things like exposure that you need to worry about, and sadly, unlike a digital camera, you can't view the image once you've taken it. You have to make sure you get it right the first time. Now, I'm not going to be comparing this to digital in any way in this review, but I am going to talk about some of the advantages you can get with this film camera. First of all, and the best of all, is the price. The price of this f100 used, I bought it used at Adorama for $200. That's really cheap compared to what it used to cost in 1995 when it first came out, which was $1,800. This is quite the bargain. Another advantage to this camera, of course, is the amazing viewfinder. Similar to that of the D700, D3X, and D3, it's really big and round and much larger and brighter than any DX camera Nikon, Canon, or any other camera for that reason has ever offered before. Another advantage of the f100 is the image quality you can get with it. Now, most cameras have around 12 megapixels like the D300 and the D700, but those are still really expensive cameras. To really get a lot of megapixels, you'd have to buy something like the D3X, which costs $8,000, which is a ridiculous price for most people to pay. But with this film camera, the film in here actually offers more resolution than any camera Nikon or Canon has ever made before. You can go well over 25 megapixels with the film you have in here, but of course it matters what type of film you have. It has to be professional quality and stuff. The type of film I use in mine is Velvia 50, which is the best film you can use for landscape and nature photography. It brings up the saturation, the contrast, and has the highest MTF of any film that you could get for landscape photography. In fact, I've already scanned images of film at 5,000 DPI, giving me about 30-35 megapixel images that are pretty sharp too. But of course, taking pictures with the film camera like the f100 is not all that you have to do with a film camera. You can't just snap a picture and then that's it. You put it into your computer somehow. No, it doesn't work like that at all. Once you take pictures of the film, you have to take it out, get it processed, and then get it scanned. All that has to happen in order to make it a digital file, and that can be quite expensive. And that is the real disadvantage of having a film camera. The expense you have to pay for the film, the processing, and the scanning. Of course, if you have your own scanner or your own darkroom, that makes things a lot easier and payments a lot less. But for most people, that's not the case. So with a film camera, you have to use it very wisely and very sparingly. Only take pictures of what you know are going to be good pictures. And this all leads to my final part of the review, which is a film camera right for you? Well, first off, the first thing I really want to say is that I wouldn't recommend that you only use film cameras, especially for people who are amateurs or beginners, because they really can't afford to use film all the time. I would suggest getting a digital camera first, using that for a while, and once you get good at taking pictures, then maybe considering buying a cheap film camera that you can use. I also don't recommend film for things like sports and wildlife photography. That's why I still have my D300 for wildlife. I don't use film to take pictures of wildlife at all. I just use it for landscape and nature, or still life, which is what you should probably use if you take pictures with film. So if a film camera sounds right for you, the question is what type of film camera do you want? Well, if you're a Nikon user, the f100 is definitely the best film camera you can get. And Nikon does have the Nikon F6, but that's quite expensive. It's about $1,500 for a used camera, and quite a bit more if you want it brand new. The f100 being at $200 and newer than most any other film camera except for the F6 is definitely the best price overall for the best quality you can get. So if you were to get a film camera and you're a Nikon user, I definitely recommend the f100 any day.